every amount of pain there.
Something big, like a Star Wars or a Marvel.
Wouldn't have been good, but would have been like, okay.
You are at the movies with Ace,
And Martin.
and today we are reviewing Halloween. It is spooky season. We are 2 weeks into spooky season, and this was my recommendation for us to review on the pod. I couldn't think of a better movie to start with, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, it's the quintessential, I think, like horror movie. I think it's in a way the gateway into the modern era of horror films. And I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about the movie, but I think it was a great recommendation, and hopefully some of you along at home who haven't seen it went out of your way to find it and check it out for the first time.
John Carpenter flick, who I know you love, and I know friends of ours love. His movies have definitely been in rotation with some of our watch parties. 1978, interesting time in film. Not to bring up Star Wars already, but it is the year after Star Wars. A lot of these film school brats are getting more things like this happening. It's one of the highest grossing independent films when you look at, with only a budget, I believe, of $300,000, made $70 million in the box office, I believe. That's a crazy, good margin. The success of that has right off into a franchise, and not only in movies, but a video game and a legend TV show as well. The Halloween franchise seems never ending, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some highs and lows to the success of this film, but I think for its time, there was not really a more influential genre movie in horror in the late 70s. I think that there was a lot of other great pictures coming out at the time, but you don't have the 1980s horror boom that we had without John Carpenter's Halloween.
Now, what was kind of your first experience with this movie? When was your first time seeing it?
I guess my first experience with the movie was actually probably just with the score itself.
Okay.
As a little kid, I was always a scaredy cat, so I didn't like watching scary movies. And I was always scared at Halloween time. Just people in masks and stuff like that always freaked me out. And I think that's part of the fun of the holiday. But the older I got, the more like curious and into the macabre I was. And I think that we had like the CD that we would play, like that had like Halloween tracks on it. And one of them was the John Carpenter's The Halloween score, the opening title sequence that, repeats throughout the movie as almost a reprise. And I always asked my dad, I was like, what is this song from? It's so scary. I was probably 11 or 12. I think it was on Netflix. And
It's a good time.
I watched it.
It's a good time to get into a slasher.
I had
Especially
already
this one.
seen some other John Carpenter movies at that point. I'm a big fan of Big Trouble in Little China, and I had seen that movie before. I believe I had also seen... what's another one? There was another one I had seen Escape from New York already.
Yes.
And even Escape from Los Angeles already. So I was aware of like the kind of action and genre side of things. And I was like, well, I should just get into the Halloween, and I did. And I remember binging pretty much the entire franchise, whatever I could find streaming back in the early 2010s to catch up with the Halloween franchise. And by the time I was in like college and we both went to film school, I was like, yeah, Halloween's just one of those movies I know like the back of my hand. I know the whole franchise kind of in and out.
It's weird. I also have a connection with the song as a little kid. I used to take piano lessons when I was very, very young. And that was one of the songs I learned, very simple, like chords. And I had just knew it as the Michael Myers theme. Never knew it beyond that. And I knew of the movies into high school, but never saw them. And it wasn't until on this channel, you can't see the video, but we reviewed Halloween for Missing Link in our first pod together. And that was when I first watched the movie. And I was insanely impressed by it because, growing up, the slasher genre for me was honestly just the Chucky movies. If there was any franchise I watched as a kid, was that and the Final Destination movies a little bit. So I always thought of this genre as a little silly. I was never afraid. And Halloween was the first time where I was like, oh, this subgenre could create actual horror. Like it is anxiety inducing, all in the good ways. It's the ultimate fall, autumn Halloween movie. It looks like what I picture in my brain if you say autumn. It does a phenomenal job at the atmosphere. The vibes are there. It's giving Halloween, the whole movie.
Yeah, it is. And one thing I think that's impossible to ignore about this movie is the fact that they make up this fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois. And it's shot in California, so you could see a couple of palm trees up on the skyline and stuff like that. But it makes this like imaginary, this could be any neighborhood kind of setting. And I think that is one of the strongest elements of this film. But before we get too into Halloween 1978, I think we both have a unique story about the current state of streaming and like film restoration at this point.
Oh my God.
I tried to watch this movie, and like what I do usually do when there's a movie I need to watch, I'll just search on like Roku or Google and be like, oh, Halloween, and try to find it. And it was like playing on like AMC TV, and I was like, I don't remember my password. I think it's linked to my Amazon account or something. Whatever. I saw it on this new thing called Fossum, and I was like, what the hell is Fossum?
What a name for a streaming service.
I thought it was like a Canopy or like any of these other ones,
right?
That are like connected to your library account, where they just like, if you have a library card, you can get access to this digital library. And no, I didn't create an account or anything, and I start the movie. There's no subtitle option. The color is completely wrong. Like, the orange jack-o'-lantern almost looks green. And the sound is like, it sounds like it's like someone recorded a screen with a camera. And it's like, I'm like, I didn't torrent anything. I didn't download anything. This is the worst copy of this movie I've ever seen. And then the UI for this Fossum app had a skip intro button that was honestly about half the size of the screen. For John Carpenter's Halloween, which is one of the best intros of all time.
Yeah. Very minimalist, too. You don't really want anything like in your way of watching a movie like Halloween. I watched it on AMC Plus. Big mistake. When I clicked on it, the opening credits were already going, and I'm like, okay. Now I tried it again the next day. The movie did start. There were some weird logos in front of it that I don't remember. I don't know what company owns this movie now. I don't know if that's on me. I don't know if that's on AMC Plus, whatever. But as I'm watching the movie, the audio is awful. And I have surround sound. Audio's never an issue for me. I got a good setup. So that was really weird. Every now and then, the film would blink, is how I would describe it. It'd go black, go back up, and then go black again. And I'm just like, what? I don't remember this in the Halloween cut that I watched, that I rented on Amazon Prime, usually. I don't know what's going on with streaming service. This also happened with another movie that I was watching earlier today, actually. And the same thing, it fade to black, but this one looked like a cable, like you'd say it's on like TNT or FX, like it fade to black like for a commercial break. So it makes me wonder if people are not getting like the master cuts and they're getting these weird cable like things of it.
Yeah, that's so odd. I
would love to have more physical media. I just don't have the shelf room. But man, my experience trying to rewatch this film in October 1st, I watched this, and to experience all that, it really sold me that like maybe I should get serious about my physical media, especially with a movie I watch every year like Halloween.
I've started to collect some DVDs and Blu-rays, but it's like, man, if this is the state of like what these like in-between streamers, like not the really big ones, are putting up quality-wise, the Fossum experience was so bad. I was like, babe, I'm just gonna rent this, because I made my girlfriend watch it too. She had never seen it. And so it was nice to get this rewatch in with somebody who had never seen it and honestly isn't a fan of horror movies at all, an experience like this. So, yeah, I was like, well, I'm just going to Amazon rent this because that's what needs to happen at this point.
No, it would have been worth the rental. Like, the movie deserved a better viewing than what I got. It makes me think. I was like, man, I'd rather fucking drive to my local Blockbuster and pick up a copy of Halloween. Maybe we had it right all along.
I think we had it too good back in like the 2010, before Netflix completely took over and Blockbusters were still around. If we got to return to that.
Going towards the cast of this movie, Jamie Lee Curtis, her name will probably be brought up later on this pod as well. Like the OG, the Michael Jordan of Final Girls. Like she is, you know, when you think of horror movie Final Girl, you know, she's got to be in the top 3 names you think of, no matter what.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is really like an incredible breakout performance for her. I like the dialogue between her and her friends. I think it feels a little bit like corny and like almost like 70s TV movie-y, but I feel like the establishment of those characters and why they're different and why she's kind of like a weird outsider, but they like to keep her around because, you know, all of their parents like her. And she's kind of like, she's the goody two-shoes, the Girl Scout that can kind of get away with a lot. And I think she sets up a lot of interesting things for the genre and the tropes in general that we see later on in the movies that are derivative of this. The core principles of Jamie Lee Curtis's character and performance in this movie really help define the slasher genre just as much as Michael Myers as the monster or as the shape. And I think that is something that can't be understated about why this movie works so well.
You know what I really like about Laurie, and I always have, is that she's not like, she is this like goody two-shoes, but still like hangs out with everybody. It's not like she's getting bullied. Like, it's not that trope either. Like, she's just so like, that's more relatable to me. Like, where she's kind of just that person that's kind of in the middle. And I've always kind of related to that growing up, where I wasn't one of the cool kids, but I also wasn't smart enough to be a nerd either. I was kind of just in this middle. And I think that's why she's kind of the perfect base for people to relate to her and kind of cheer her on and want her to survive later on in the movie as well.
Yes, and I think it's interesting, too, that pretty much all the main characters that we follow in this movie are teenage girls. I feel like as the genre kind of devolved from here, or went on and continued, there were a lot more like male character archetypes, or there would be like a friend group that was co-ed.
The males in this movie are idiots.
Yes.
Like, all of them. It's so
Whatever
funny.
the opposite of the Bechdel test is, this movie has. I think the only conversation between male characters are Donald Pleasance and the police officer.
Good segue. Donald Pleasance, I mean, horror icon. It all started with this movie. He's just the perfect character to follow you around. He gives enough info about Michael where it's still a mystery as well, because even he's still trying to wrap his head around it and still trying to diagnose this guy, still trying to study this guy. Dude, would you say Dr. Loomis is a good doctor?
Are we talking about the network drama series Good Doctor? Or?
Is he a good doctor?
I mean, I think that he is... When you think of, like, the sheriff in No Country for Old Men, you know, you think of Tommy Lee Jones' character in that. And
right.
Kind of how exhausted he is by the pure evil he has seen in this world and how he can't justify or explain any of it. I feel that same sense of gravity from the things that he has witnessed trying to treat Michael. I think he's just as mad as Michael is in some ways. But... he's the only one who knows the true threat and the true evil that is in the shape. And I really think that his performance makes it more suspenseful because he is a pretty put together kind of crazy guy who once the escape from the psych ward scene happens, you have no idea where Michael is until he starts showing up in the background places. And him trying to track down the shape is probably my favorite element of this movie. Mm-hmm. Although I think they do that element a little bit better in later movies. Yeah. But, you know, he is like dead set on stopping Michael Myers from wreaking havoc to this entire town because he knows how powerful he is. And no one else knows. He's a complete unknown entity to everybody, every other character in the movie. So, you know, you have this spectrum of evil and good, but both are, you know, kind of tunnel visioned into a singular goal. And I think that that's a really interesting dynamic to spread the rest of the cast on.
The beginning with the first person shot, to kind of go back to why Michael Myers was sent to that, I'm sure was shocking for a lot of people watching that. Like, for one, you're getting a tits almost instantly in this movie. which would become a slasher movie trope for years to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then immediately stabbed in this first person. It's one of those moments where I'd love to go back in time and just go into a theater opening night in 1978 and just see people's reaction to that. Because for mainstream, like, I know the 70s were a little more progressive and then things got a little more like safe in the 80s, but even for 1978, that had to be jarring for something like that.
Yeah, and like I can't think of too many other movies that had that first-person perspective. Shout out to Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, who went on to do things like Jurassic Park and things of that nature. It's kind of revolutionary how many handheld shots there are in this movie. I know Rocky had already come out, and that was like the first one to have Steadicam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this film like utilizes perspective in a very, very unique way. And that opening scene is such a good showcase. There's a lot of long, continuous takes. And there's some things that are a little weird, too. Like the kid's arm being so freaking long when he grabs the knife. And, like, you know, some things that, you know, could be perfected with today's technology. But
that
like,
had to be just an adult arm, right?
Yeah, I think so. Or it was some sort of weird, like, fisheye lens, and there's, like, distortion with the forced perspective. But either way, it's really silly.
And it establishes kind of everything you need to know. It's like, this kid's messed up. He killed his sister. Now he's sent to this, you know, thing. And Loomis, you know, explains all that. The stalking Michael Myers does, following Laurie Strode around, and all that was really good. When did Michael Myers learn how to drive? Was somebody teaching him that?
That's the big, like, mystery of this movie. He's, like, you know, not a great driver, but he's driving a lot better than a 7-year-old who went to a psych ward and hasn't seen the light of day in 15 years.
Yeah, later on we see the kills where he's kind of playing with the corpses, either like dressing them up or putting them in spots. It truly is. It's a mind of a 5-year-old. Like, the guy hasn't progressed since that mentally.
It's really twisted, and it's something that I don't think the rest of the franchise really gets about the Shape. I feel like they just create him as like some sort of devil or monster walking among men. Like they go way in on the boogeyman thing, and there's obviously many times in this movie where he like disappears in a way that like, how did he teleport away? Like, you know, but in the context of this film, everything is pretty grounded and believable until he gets shot, falls off a balcony, and runs away.
The way Carpenter shoots him, I still think is terrifying. The way they always lit him and stuff, I don't know, just something about his mannerisms compared to all the other movies just don't do it as well. Whether that's the mask looking goofy or just whatever actor they chose just seems a little off. Something is just like perfect about this that's just eerie is really the only way I could describe it. It seems off-putting. I do not want to be in a room with that man. Some of the other movies, if I'm in a room with the goofy ass Halloween 6 mask, I'm probably gonna laugh.
Yeah. Or Busta Rhymes is beating him up.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
And the mask is from a Captain Kirk mask, right? It's technically William Shatner's face that they took from the set of a Star Trek.
It's a bleached Star Trek William Shatner James Kirk mask.
And they've had so many issues recreating it. Truly, they really don't get it right until 2018. If we're talking about like the classic mask, like it really until that movie, the mask just gets incredibly weird like moving forward after this.
Yeah, no, it's weird that they even bothered to change it. Like, I don't think the mask really looks perfect again like this until
they lost it, right? Like, nobody knows where the original mask is.
Someone must have stole the prop and has it in their basement or something.
In their minds, it's like, oh, we're making like a $300,000 movie. Hopefully it makes $1 million. Some people see it and they move on, and Carpenter moves on to his next project. I'm sure nobody thought this was going to be the franchise that it is.
Yeah, right. And you know, that just brings up like some really other like interesting elements too of like where this franchise goes. One of the things that I really like forgot about in this movie, and it wasn't until my girlfriend, who had seen it for the first time, pointed it out. She's not a big fan of horror movies, but she'll give them a try. That thing where you're like talking to the characters in the movie, like, oh, don't go in there or whatever. Yep. There's so many times in this movie that Michael will like lock someone in a room, and it's kind of like hilarious. I forgot that he does that like 5 times in this movie.
He's just pulling pranks.
The implications of morality with Michael and who lives and who dies, with like the purity and who's a virgin and things like that. There's nothing explicitly said in this movie. But it is like funny that the characters that have sex right in front of a jack-o'-lantern, meet the fate that they do in the opening scene, which is that the quickiest quickie in all time? Because the guy's like, all right, I'm out of here. I'll call you. She's like, call me tomorrow. He's like, yeah, maybe. It's like in the opening scene, like all we saw was Michael walk around the house and go grab a knife from the kitchen. And by the time he gets to the staircase, which is like 48 seconds of runtime, the boyfriend's on his way out after like, let's go upstairs. Like, I don't know. Anyway, maybe Michael's just against bad sex.
You know what? I commend him for that. Yeah, it's weird because Friday the 13th is after this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the first Friday the 13th, it's really on the nose that the mother wants revenge because all the camp counselors were fooling around and her son died. That was really on the nose of what they were trying to do with the whole sex thing. And Halloween just kind of does that. Not to harp on the sequels too much, do you rather having a Michael and Laurie connection, whether that's siblings or whatever, or just by chance Michael chose them? I think the just by chance is a little more frightening to me, but if we're talking about the rest of the movies, I don't know.
You know, I have conflicting feelings on it. I feel like anytime they set up that there's some sort of connection, the end payoff isn't good, but the elements of there being a connection are strong. I also really like when they bring back characters from this movie in an organic way. Like, I really like the concept of Tommy when he grows up being a pivotal role in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, but it's just not executed right. The writing for these films got too interconnected within their own lore, especially after the third one not being about Laurie or Michael at all, that they felt like they needed to be connected. And I don't think they need to be. I think it's better if they're not connected in any capacity. When we get to the modern trilogy, where they made 3 direct sequels to this movie with varying degrees of success and quality, in my opinion, it makes me wonder why Michael would care so much about getting revenge on Laurie, and why this is so important and is like a generational thing. It's just odd to me.
I like the twist of 2018 where it was Laurie getting revenge of her paranoia gets to her whole life. I thought that was, really well done in that movie specifically if it was contained. More stuff like that is frightening to me than, Star Warsing it and everyone's related. I don't know. It depends what version it is. There's so many timelines and stuff now. Who knows, what the future holds here too. Overall, though, what's your favorite scene of this movie?
I've been thinking about that for a while, and upon rewatching it, I forgot how truly chilling it is. The whole walking home from school sequence, where you have Tommy getting picked on with his pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern that he wants to carve. The little kids bullying him and picking on him, telling that the boogeyman's going to come from him, to he falls over, smashes the pumpkin, and then Michael's just right there and grabs one of the bully kids. And it's like, whoa, that's creepy. Then we see him get in the car, and then we see the 3 babysitter girls all talking and yapping and even smoking a joint, I believe. And there's a car just following them the entire time.
If there's a car on my ass for that long, that close to me, I would literally pull over so they could pass me or something. Like, they're, especially smoking weed, it's like, holy shit, pull over.
Yeah, I think that whole sequence of all of those characters walking home from school is really terrifying. And when they yell at Michael in the car and he slams on the brakes, it's so heightened. I was just going to say, what's your favorite sequence?
Since my first viewing, this has always been a scene that gets me, and it's my favorite. It's when Laurie is in the closet and he is going through, like, sticking his hand through the door and the lights flickering. I'm not a claustrophobic person, but oh my god, do I feel claustrophobic in that scene. There was just something weird about it. When I was a kid, I used to hide in closets for fun, like hide and seek and everything. So there's something almost innocent about that. So I think seeing it turn into a dangerous, like, I am trapped here, there's nothing I could do, like, type of situation, I think I find just terrifying. Like, to this day, as a almost 27-year-old man, like, Michael Myers still scares me a little in this movie. There's something so, like, even with your scene, like, walking home from school, there's something so relatable to that this just really gets on. Like, Friday the 13th, for example, I never went to camp. So, I quite frankly, I don't like the forest. I don't know what's in there. I tend to avoid the forest. So it's not really a problem for me. But something like this, especially as somebody who grew up in a suburban town that looks a lot like this fictional town, I think it just hits a little closer to home for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people.
I really like the suspense and the really creepy shots where he's just somewhere in the background.
Yeah.
And, like, you as the audience have the context that the characters don't have. And it all comes down to design. It's not that the concept of someone standing in the background isn't always scary. Mm-hmm. But it is when you know all of the things that Dr. Loomis is saying, and you know the people that he's killed on the way to get that far.
Yeah.
And you see that there, and it's so haunting. And I think that slow burn suspense is really what not only this franchise started to lack, but, like, what the entire subgenre of slashers started to lack, where they were just like, oh, let's turn into a splatter fest, you know, like, let's just make it about as many people that can die as possible. The slow burn to the climax of this movie really is just incredible, where the closet scene and all of that happens after Laurie goes in and sees that all of her friends have not only been killed, but their bodies have been made into grotesque art of a child's plaything.
Yeah.
It is really spooky.
This really built the blueprint to where, yeah, you can have your generic, like, you know, monster of the week type movie and everybody gets scared and somebody saves the day. When you make it a person, it makes you realize, like, you know, this could be somebody down my street, this could be somebody I know. It heightens it way more. It really opened my eyes to the slasher genre as a whole. I would recommend this movie.
Absolutely. I think if you're even remotely interested in horror movies, I think you kind of have to have this as an essential viewing some point.
It's the Wizard of Oz of horror movies. You have to watch it. There's
a giant sea change in everything that's before this and after this, and I think you can see some small steps towards this, like, you know, Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that are also slasher movies in a different kind of way, but I mean, they follow the same blueprint and plot as this. But when you get into the like long-standing franchise-ness of it all, and you get into the lore and the archetypes of character, from Halloween on, even to this day, everyone's doing this again to some capacity.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see it's now been almost 30 years since Scream. We are now seeing, like, the meta re-evolution of all of these, where you get a movie like Happy Death Day, or what was the one with Vince Vaughn?
Oh man, what was that called? I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Even Barbarian in a way is kind of meta, because it's we're in the era of subverting expectations in these type of horror movies, and that's kind of what Barbarian does, but in a good way. I know that's a controversial world in movies, but it's interesting to see where this subgenre will go into the future, because you still see the influences from John Carpenter's Halloween. This is not like an old head movie. This ain't a movie for just for your unks. This movie, I think, transcends, like, generations.
Absolutely. I think that there's so many elements of this movie too that aged so much better than a lot of even, like, 80s, 90s, early 2000s slasher movies. Like, this one still feels pretty timeless. I think that might be because there isn't some sort of, like, technology incorporated. You don't see characters
just
on
phones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and even then it's like, you know, I guess you could say it could be a little dated with the phones, but I don't know. It'd be the same thing with a cell phone. You'd be trying to call, and Michael Myers would cut the fucking Verizon LG tower down the...
He's taken down my fiber. I have no idea how to track my friends using Find My Friends. Yeah.
What did you give this on Letterboxd?
Oh, I believe this one's sitting at a 4.5 for me. I feel like it is a damn near perfect movie. I think everything about this movie is endlessly rewatchable. I log this movie like once a year.
It's one of my rare fives, and it had to be. It's a movie that, like, I do try to rewatch almost every year, and I try to show somebody new too who is trying to get into horror. It's the perfect gateway for slashers if you do want to get into it at any age too. Yeah, everybody gets into it when they're younger, but I didn't get into it until I was like 20 or 19. Like, sometimes there are late bloomers, and I think this movie's just as good even without that, like, growing up with it influence.
Yeah, I feel like to enjoy some of the other, like, slasher movies and to enjoy some of the other, Halloween movies specifically, there has to be at least some sort of planted nostalgia for the franchise.
Yeah.
And this one is completely fine to just watch as a standalone. And then because they've tried to reinvent the timeline a couple of times, you know, depending on if you really like this movie, you probably should just watch Halloween 2 as a result and know that that's the end of the original Laurie and Michael, like, arc. And then if you still really like that one, watch 4, 5, even 6 maybe.
I was about to say 4. Yeah, after 4 is probably the one I'd recommend the most, just because that ending rocks. They don't do it.
Yeah.
They fumble it in the next movie, but that ending still rocks on its own.
Halloween 4 is probably, like, low-key the second best movie if you don't count Season of the Witch, which is, you know, my favorite in this whole franchise.
We did mention the series was supposed to be more of an anthology, kind of like The Twilight Zone, where every year it'd come out with a different story. Michael Myers just makes bank. Nothing we could do about it. Even though Season of the Witch, it's Kino playing at my local theater on Halloween. I'm thinking about going, actually.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Pretty solid. I think we covered all the bases with a classic.
Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts in the comments? Leave them down below. Let us know what you think of Halloween. Has it aged well to you? Is it one that you watch every year, or was this your first time watching it? Well, we're excited to engage with, like, the community and you know, talk about these movies onward. Anytime we do a movie book club kind of episode on this show, we encourage the audience to watch along. I believe I'm recommending one next week's episode.
Yes.
And I think that should be really fun.
Yeah, at some point, we'll try to do something where we'll almost have a mailbag. So I'm sure after a couple episodes, we're going to have some questions. And,
cool.
Yeah, I'll set that up in some way. I'll figure out where I want to put it. Before that, though, in the comments, we read all the comments and stuff. Because, oh boy, we're probably going to get some comments for our second half of this. Because this is our first time on the pod where we got some opinions. And people in movies love opinions. And we can all agree fine, and there's never any backlash to giving out opinions on the internet. We are doing, the first time in this series, a Mount Rushmore. So, you know, people come up to you like, oh, what's your NBA Mount Rushmore or something? I love doing that with movies, and we decided with reviewing Halloween and with us being big fans of the slasher genre, we're doing a Mount Rushmore of Final Girls. If you don't know, Final Girl is kind of a term where it is the main character of a slasher. It's usually the person that survives or saves the day, quote unquote, at the end. It's a very loose term. It doesn't have to be a woman either. That's just, you know, the saying that it's always been. It is a very dominantly female-like category. But some of these picks, some of my honorable mentions that maybe we'll mention at the end might surprise us.
Yeah, I hope that our lists have some differences. I feel very confident in my 4, and I don't really have any that I would consider that hot of a take.
I'm thinking we go back and forth between ours, and then at the end we decide what our joint one is. Yeah, I'll let you go first, Nate. What's the first one you want to shout out here on your Mount Rushmore?
So the first one, we just got done talking about Halloween. I don't know how you make this Mount Rushmore without Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise. Hands down, one of the most impactful characters in, I think, horror movie history. Is the template and the blueprint for the final girl. She wins the day by being quick on her feet, quick thinking, defends herself against an unstoppable force multiple times. She stabs him. She also pokes him in the eye with a clothes hanger. She fends him off long enough for Dr. Loomis to shoot him like 5 or 6 times with a revolver and drop from a window. As far as I'm concerned, she defeats Michael Myers until she doesn't. In the context of Final Girls, the repeat appearances of this character. She's in the direct sequel. She's in a legacy sequel 20 years after. She's in the sequel to that legacy sequel. She's in a legacy sequel trilogy 40 years later. Like, this has to be one of the most long-standing, most appearances of any Final Girl that I can think of. And, like, she got the most seasons. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
In a pro wrestling analogy, which I'm the best at, she's Shawn Michaels. She has multiple careers where she's just the GOAT.
And there's never a time where I don't like Jamie Lee Curtis's portrayal of the character. I think they've written her vastly different multiple times. Mm-hmm. I love how she's portrayed in the original. And like I said earlier, it's a complete breakout performance. But when we see her in H2O, you know, she's kind of just trying to be a mother and has experienced all these horrible things in the past, and it hasn't broken her. And then we have the reboot in 2018 where she is completely broken from the events of that movie, and it ignores the 20 years later sequel. She has a daughter instead of a son, and the different timeline split of the duality of those extremes is really unique to see from one character. I can't think of another opportunity that the franchise has written its central character to do multiple kind of outcomes from the first like canon event. And she has to be on here as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I had a feeling you picked her, so I went with the other Final Girl that a lot of people love. I went with Sidney Prescott from Scream. I love the Scream franchise. This was kind of a no-brainer for me. She kind of redefined it by not changing much either. She was just really cool, and her longevity, I think, of the franchise has really helped her too. When you think of Ghostface, you kind of just picture her right next to it. Like, she's been in almost every movie. She'll be back in the next one, allegedly. But but I never got sick of her. She's a character I always wanted to cheer on in all of the movies. When she came back in Scream 4, like, it was really cool. I think Sidney was such a pivotal character for that certain generation. Scream 4 was really funny because you then had Emma Roberts, I believe it was, try to come in and be the fake evil Sidney in a way, kind of in the third act, and that's a lot of fun. Sidney's got some cool moments. She's kind of got some badass moments too, with especially in the first movie when she's taken down Loomis. Much like Laurie, she's just a pillar, and I just feel like at the very least she had to be mentioned here.
I totally agree. I have her as an honorable mention. I think because of the meta surroundings of Scream, it just doesn't quite feel as like as earnest of a spot. But I do think she's, like, hands down iconic, and Sidney Prescott's like one of those, like, beloved horror icons in terms of Final Girls. Definitely deserves a spot on a Mount Rushmore. I wouldn't be like disgusted to see her there by any means.
No. What is your next one?
The next one I have might be on your list. I have Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise.
Oh, okay.
Ellen Ripley is one of the most badass characters in film ever. I love the themes of maternal instincts with her character that is unique because I believe the original Alien, Ridley Scott did not write the character to be male or female. It was kind of like a whim that Sigourney Weaver got cast. And they were like, you know what? This is like a fun thing that we can play with. Whether it's literally saving the cat or it's in the sequels saving other young women and other characters in that franchise. It's interesting too because it starts as like a horror movie final girl, and by the time you get to even Aliens, the second movie, she's just full on an action hero too. Yeah. And I like to see like the strength and conditioning from one movie to a next. By like the third one or fourth one, she's like waking up from a Cairo sleep in a prison. You know, it's really, really far-fetched, and each movie takes its her into another situation where she is the survivor and she's the final girl. And it's really, really cool to see how genre plays a hand in what she is able to accomplish. I think that Ellen Ripley has to be on this Mount Rushmore. Truly, just one of the great on-screen protagonists in Alien 1979, the year after Halloween, and honestly, it might be even scarier.
Yeah, if I thought about Ripley, she would have been on my list. She is kind of the sci-fi Laurie Strode in a way. My next pick is actually somebody that I thought was going to be on yours. I think we kind of switched our picks almost in a way consciously. I got Ash Williams from Evil Dead.
I have him on mine too.
Yeah, with Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, like he's kind of the anti-final girl in a way. Like, not even because of him being a man, like just of how he reacts to everything and how those movies end up being. It's just awesome. Who doesn't love Bruce Campbell as well? I feel like just Ash at least had to be talked about here. He's the one man on my Mount Rushmore just because of the badassery that is him in the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah, he's on mine too. I think similarly to Ripley, you kind of have a bit of a genre change between the second and third movies. There's also Ash versus the Evil Dead, the television series, where we see more of him fighting off these hordes of monsters. But I do really like the subversion to a trope that was really only in its infancy with his character. And instead of it being some really earnest and well-meaning, like, heartfelt, sentimental main character, you have this kind of goofball, almost Looney Tunes character at the center.
It's almost a parody of himself. Like,
yes, it's like a parody of the guy who gets stuck surviving this all.
We just didn't. The audience just didn't really know at the time. But then we look back on it's like we see what Sam was cooking here.
And I really like. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Bruce Campbell? You're totally right on the money there. It's so funny to see him play the heightened version of what one of these archetypes is.
Since we technically both went there, I'll throw another name in. I went with Grace Ladamus, Samara Weaving from Ready or Not, which is a movie we discussed last week. It's in my Letterboxd top 4. Of course, I had to put her here. Marriage is tough, huh? In-laws are even tougher, huh? She really went through it. The way she's able to constantly escape from this board game obsessed family that wants to kill her. She's in this bride's dress the whole time, and it's become iconic when she kind of rips the skirt and like puts like weapons on her and stuff. I know in the Scream movies, it's made by the same directors. If you see in the background, I believe it's the one where they're in New York, and in the subway, it's on Halloween, and there's a person in a costume of Samara Weaving's character in Ready or Not. So it's
that's funny.
That image has become a little more iconic of the wedding dress and everything. I love when she's going back and forth with the husband at the time. At the time, she thought the husband was on her side, and he just goes, "You wanted to get married," and she's just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like so good, and her performance like just carries this movie. What a great ensemble! But you're cheering her on. Like, to me, she's the best final girl to cheer on. Like, just you want that person to win. At the ending is so satisfying with the entire family just erupting. She's covered in blood. She lights a cigarette at the end. It's like, what a fucking day for this new bride. Grace is a badass.
Yeah, I like that modern choice, and I know how much you love that movie. I do think that it is an iconic performance and an iconic character. And I also do like the element of marrying into the monster, marrying into the cursed family. And that is like a really good element. I have a really meta one as my final. I think it's because this whole franchise is a celebration of the trope. Even if I don't like every movie in the franchise to its fullest extent, I have Maxine from the X franchise.
Okay.
Because
Very new.
I think
Last year, I think, right? The last movie came out.
I think that was last year.
Yeah.
And that is a direct sequel to the film X. And then you have the prequel, where it's not the same character, but it is the same actress, Mia Goth, playing the character who she defeats at the end of the first X. There's a lot of, like, winks and nods, especially in the first X film, to other films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and even Halloween, in terms of, like, you know the story and you know the beats that the story is going for. But where I felt this kind of subversion of the final girl expectation comes is really with the final film. It goes into straight up like a giallo thriller, and it is this kind of mystery caper, someone stalking her, and she in a way becomes the monster herself. I really like Pearl, the prequel, which is not the same final girl, but because it's the same actress, you see this kind of generational kind of baton pass of the cursed like of what like, I guess, like, stardom and fame and corruption and dreams being crushed can lead someone to do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really interesting thing. I think Mia Goth is incredible and one of the genre greats right now.
Yeah.
I'm not married to her being on the Mount Rushmore, but a character that is so centered around the archetype and being executed so well, I really have to appreciate and throw a hat in the ring.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. My last one is a wild one, and I saved it for last because this will get some explaining. Tina Shepard from Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. I had a really good time with this movie, and it really is because of Tina, who has, because of her trauma, has telekinesis powers. She accidentally murders her father when she's a child. They go back to that house where she murdered her father. They have this kind of evil therapist guy who's trying to channel the powers, trying to get it on videotape. And of course, it's in the same link as Jason. Jason was stuck there from the last movie. I believe Tommy trapped him down there. It's so fascinating because 4, 5, and 6 is the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, right? And then they leave that. They go into this movie and it's like, all right, what the hell can we do next? Let's have Jason fight a Jedi, pretty much. Like, the girl's got force powers. Like, this is straight up turns into a superhero movie, and I had so much fun with it. Currently binging these movies for a future video, so I will probably go into more detail. Spoiler, Friday the 13th 7 is a little too high on my list, probably, because I really like this movie. And I think Tina's performance is really good. She kind of just wants to party with the neighbor's friends, but this whole, like, evil therapist guy just wants her to continuously show her powers and stuff. It's fascinating, and it's kind of the introduction to this franchise getting incredibly goofy. I thought they kind of knocked out of the park with this. I thought this was a really interesting thing to do because telekinetic powers, that's not too out of the realm. Like, we're not too goofy yet. And by this point, we're 7 movies in. Jason is a fucking undead zombie with, like, mega powers at this point. She's basically taking on a kaiju. So this the climax between them, she lights Jason on fire in this really awesome scene, actually. Yeah, I think she's great. I don't think she'll end up in our, actual one, but I wanted to give her a quick shout out, and I'll have more thoughts on the movie in the future. If you want to visit any of them, Nate, I suggest that one, because I have some thoughts, and I'd love to know your recent thoughts on it.
I like Friday the 13th, 6 and 7 a lot. 5, 6, and 7 is maybe the best 3-movie run in that franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I really think that they know when to just let it rip and go crazy with it. I think the pitch for that movie too was like, oh, what if we had like Carrie versus like
yeah,
Jason
I could
Voorhees?
see that.
Like how could we do something like that? And I think it wasn't maybe enough to save the franchise from getting stale, but it at least gave us one more movie that's entertaining.
Yeah.
In a long run of like middling films.
After this, Jason goes to Manhattan So this is kind of the last movie that takes place at the camp for a while. So it was kind of like, it was a transition, but also a send off at the same time. It's quite an interesting film looking at the history of Jason, and I'm sure we will dive into that in a future episode. Yeah, now we got to decide what our big four is here. It's Sydney or Laurie. It'd be tough to have both, right? They're kind of both in the same category. And I'm leaning towards Laurie. I think Sydney needed a shout out. It's like not having Michael Jordan on your Mount Rushmore. It's like, are you kidding me?
That's fair. I respect that. I did want to just quickly make a case for why we should lock Ash. I think for the sake of diversity, Ash has got to be on there.
We both had him. Yeah, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I think no doubt about it. Yeah, I think Ash and Laurie. And then I have Tina. I think
like the Sidney Prescott thing is like one of those things where it's like we haven't really seen much of her character change, really.
Yeah.
Like, I think just Laurie's impact, like I was saying, where you kind of get a split timeline view of the results of the trauma she experiences from the inciting movie is really an element that they could have done with Sidney Prescott, but just haven't yet. They've kind of just given us, like,
the only
one narrative line.
The only change we've seen is her not showing up in the last movie. Like, that was like a, hey, I'm done here, like, kind of moment, but that's all going to get retconned in the next one, most likely, because of the situation they're in. So the Sydney one just might not age well. Unfortunately, it's not to the fault of that character, but I have no idea the direction of that franchise, where Laurie is probably done. I don't think Michael Myers is done. He'll never be done. But Laurie, I think, might be done. At least Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know where they take that franchise besides a full-on reboot and remake of the original, which is just terrifying to think about. Please don't do it.
I heard a TV show reboot is pretty much greenlit.
Don't drag it out. Don't make it a series.
And I don't know where it would be set. I don't know. That's weird. Because they're doing a Friday the 13th series. I don't know if that will go well. I've heard some stuff that Corey Feldman would love to do a Halloween 2018 type movie with Friday the 13th, but it takes place after 4, and everything else is just not canon. That'd be
I don't think that'll happen, but
I don't think it will.
I hope it does.
It's an interesting theory to have.
It's a cool pitch. Like I think Corey Feldman could throw that idea around, probably on a podcast or something.
Come on, Corey. Tell us your outline.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you.
Okay. It's kind of tough because you have from Maxine, and what was your fourth one?
Ripley from Alien.
Ooh, I'd love to have Ripley on it, actually.
I think I like Ash, Laurie, and if I can get one more, it would be Ripley. Yeah. And I think just the genre mix-up alone is what makes her really stand out. Because we get that a little bit with Ash as well, where, like, the third one is just straight up, like, a farce.
Yeah.
And it is a little more action-y, but, like, I feel like with Alien to Aliens is a much bigger jump, and it's all earnest. It's not, like, tongue-in-cheek and over-the-top and campy. Even
Alien 3, not her fault. I still like Ripley in that movie.
I still like Alien 3. It's like it's a well-directed movie. It just clearly has a lot of studio notes.
Yeah, I'm down to put Ripley on here. And I feel like I'm going to make a case for Grace, just because how much she carries that movie and you're following her throughout that movie. To me, I think she's the ultimate modern final girl.
I agree. And it feels a lot more subtle and a lot less self-referential than Maxine. Like, I think they exist in a similar plane, but I like what you're saying a lot about her character, and that tie between, like, marriage and getting married into that is, like, a really unique angle for a final girl in a slasher movie of sorts.
Cheer, they're making a sequel.
Good.
Yeah.
Is it called Here I Come?
Oh, they're gonna screw it up like Now You See Me.
Yeah, they're gonna call it Ready or Not 2, and then in 15 years we're gonna get Here I Come, and you're gonna be like, is this connected? Is this a new thing?
Yeah, I think Samara Weaving's back in it. I have no idea where they could go with that. But to me, those directors haven't made a bad movie yet. I trust them. I'm down to see it, what they could cook up.
Did you have any other honorable mentions? I think we've got our 4 locked. If you want to read those out before.
What's your honorable mention? Because I forget the name of the one actor.
I had Sally Hardesty from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think the way that she has to kind of escape by smashing out not 1 but 2 windows and then run for the hills or hitchhike away from the madness. You know, the cannibal house is really scary, and I think it's one that predates even Laurie Strode. So there's this like, what happens with that character? However, I feel like the sequels really tainted that. The newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix really just absolutely ruined any potential there was for that character, unfortunately. They tried to do like the Laurie Strode, like bring her back, but like it's a different actress. It's just some random old lady, and there's no gravity at all to it, and it's really forced. Another honorable mention I have is Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
That's one of mine.
I think by the time you get to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, where she's in that psych ward with all of these other students or, you know, teenagers that are having issues with these nightmares.
I feel bad for her the whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really crazy to go from the ending of the first Nightmare on Elm Street to you jump to this character a few years later, and it's like it's only gotten worse. And it's really good stuff. She's a great actress and is phenomenal in those movies.
I also got Chris Higgins in Friday the 13th Part 3. I thought she was just a really solid final girl, like pretty generic, but I thought she had a really good scream, like just physically. Really liked her scream. Like nothing really stood out where I could put her on a Mount Rushmore, but wanted to give her a shout out because I know Part 3 is a little on the more negative side, at least with the fan base of Friday the 13th, but might see in a future video. I think that movie's a little underrated as well.
I agree. I think the biggest thing that stinks about it is the random shots for 3D.
Yes. They've aged terribly, but it makes it kind of fun. And I wanted to shout out Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julie Janes in I Know What You Did Last Summer. She was able to hold her own with Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Ryan Phillippe. Like that's late 90s like young actors right there. That's the big
Yeah.
3 right there. So for her to hold her own, you know, she got famous off of this movie as well. I don't want to diminish her name in any way, and she did return for this reboot one that I didn't really like, but I always really like this cast, and this cast really elevated a pretty generic slasher, and I thought she was a really good. I'd like her iconic like, "Where are you? Come get me," when she's like outside, like getting so like paranoid and so over it. You don't really get that, like especially around that time where they're just in the middle of the movie just over it and they crash out. That's pretty great. Yeah, those were kind of the 2 that were in my head, but I couldn't quite make a slot for them.
My last honorable mention, I think, is not necessarily a movie that I love, but I think such a unique take on what a final girl can be, and that's Adelaide Wilson / Red from Us, where you actually have the twist ending final girl, which is a clone of
like
who you think
evil
it's going
final
to be.
girl, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that was like a really unique way to have that archetype kind of be flipped on its head a little bit. And as much as you don't want the monster or the evil clones essentially to win, you do through the twist ending understand that, you know, they're a victim of the systemic thing as well, and that them being liberated from this weird underground prison thing with all these clones is maybe for the better.
One of my favorite shots is in that movie, and it has to do with both of them, where she's writing on the chalkboard and her face is like really to the lens, and then the clone, the girl we've been following the whole movie, is behind her with the like weapon slowly coming up, and they kind of overdid it a little bit, but I could see why, because that shot's just awesome. That reveal happens, and then you have that kind of twist at the end, like it kind of leaves you with like, whoa, what? Like it's very like, it's cool. It's cool. Us is a cool movie.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's one that I revisited somewhat recently, and like I liked it a lot more upon a second or third watch than I did when I initially saw it in theaters. You want to take us away with the final girl Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, so we got Laurie Strode, Ripley from Alien, Ash from Evil Dead. Last but certainly not least, we have Grace from Ready or Not. I think this is solid. I think we made the right decisions here, actually. I think a lot of people will actually agree with this. Probably the wild one will be Grace, but if you watched last week's episode, you'll know why she made it on here. Good job. Go us.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We're excited to hear your thoughts on our final girl Mount Rushmore tier list or ranking. I'm excited to hear what the sounds are popping off in the comments. Like, give us your 4 final girls. We'd love to hear what that archetype means to you. And stay tuned next week.
This has been At the Movies with Ace and Martin. We'll see you next time. Don't have an outro.
Nope.